Hi everyone. Okay, so if you've seen my other video about the Marathon Plus, Schwalbe Marathon Plus MTB tyre, I did an original video about 8 months ago just to say that you could do it, and I'd used it for about 4 months without any problems. And then about 8 months later, so a year after originally doing it, which is now, I uploaded a video about the tyre delaminating, and if you want to look at it, I'll try and put a link at the bottom of this one so that you can see what happened to the tyre. But this one is just about fitting a Marathon Plus Tubeless, but it will apply to all tyres, any tyre or rim combination you want to use. There'll be a slight difference that you'll have to do with, you know, the different things with fitting a valve and maybe the way the rim tape goes on, the size of the rim tape, etc, etc. But the whole procedure will be the same, more or less anyway. And I'm doing it a relatively cheap way in that I'm using a non-specific valve for a push bike, a cycle, because it's miles cheaper. I mean, valves you get for tubeless cycles, bike valves, are horrendous money. They're something like £12 for two, which is, you know, 14, 18 US dollars, depending what the exchange rates are, which is, you know, what, 14, 15 euros, something like that. So I do it the cheap way, and I order these, and this is a Schwalbe valve. So it's the car type valve, for want of an easier way of explaining it. And when they come with a full round top. So I don't know if you can see, I've literally ground the end off there and there, and also done the same with the rubber seal. You get a few different rubber seals and that with them, and I just use this rubber seal. And the idea is that can just sink in the rim. So whatever size rim you've got, this isn't a particularly thin rim, but it isn't particularly wide either. So there's the valve stem hole. So I've just made it so that it sits in there. It doesn't matter how proud it sits, etc., because you're not having a tube in here, you're running it tubeless. So all it's got to do is be out of the way of where you can see here, which is the rim which the tyre sits in. So the tyre's got to be able to sit in, obviously that sits lower once it's done up, but the tyre's got to be able to sit either side of the rim. So as long as you get any valve, you can use the valve out of your old tube, just leave a little bit of the rubber around it, put it through. When you do it up, it will make a semi-seal against here, and then when the sealant comes in, it will just fill the gaps, solidify and seal it. So, you know, you can use loads of different combinations, but I don't use the normal valves, as I say, that come for push bikes, simply because they're so expensive. I mean, these were, I got them off AliExpress, and they were about, I think they're about £1.50 for two of them. So they're just miles cheaper. And I also said in the other video, but if you didn't see it, it's worth, when you service these, and by service I'm in a tubeless tyre, normally you'll top up the sealant every now and again, because the sealant goes a bit oily. So you'll top the sealant up every now and again. So I just remove that valve and just replace it. You can get 100 of them for about £6, so about $8, €7, something like that, on eBay or AliExpress or somewhere like that. So let's get on with it. So what we need to do, first of all, we need some kind of tape. Now I use Gorilla Tape. They do it in a thinner version. This is 25mm, and they do it in a really wide version. You won't want that, but this is still too thick. So what I'm going to have to do is I'll have to trim some of it slightly. Depends how evenly I can get it round, but you need this edge and this edge left clear, and that's for the tyre to sink into both sides and to seal. You know, it's not critical, but it does need to be observed, really. So you always start with the tape at the valve hole, so you end up with the tape over the valve hole area twice. So you just do a slight overlap, So we'll start about here, and we need to push it down. As I said, you will never, unless your rim's wider, you'll never get it exactly in. So I just put it in like so, push it down, and then just run through. And if you push it and put your finger in, it bends the tape. If you can see, it bends the tape round, so it goes in the groove easier. And then literally just follow it all the way around. You only have to do this once. I've taken this off and retaping it simply to show you how to do it, really. And as I say, the same applies for all rims and all tyre combinations. This isn't a tubeless rim. It's not a tubeless tyre, but it's easy to run tubeless. And the benefits are, if it does puncture, it normally always seals. I've only ever had once where it didn't seal, and that was because the side of the tyre wall came away. It was probably about a quarter inch or more of a split, and it was just too much. I carry a spare tube, just in case, because I'd cycle quite far, and I'm quite far from home, so I needed to get home. But that's the only time, and since putting the Marathon Plus tyre, I've never had it, because the sidewalls are that much better, much stronger. So what you need to do, that's your stem hole there, your valve stem hole. So we need to come past there again to about here. So we started there, and we're finishing there, and we've gone around the whole lot. So we're going to aim to finish about there. Have a sharp knife around, because you will need that. So we're going to about, there's the stem hole, so we're going to about there. So let's cut that off. Doesn't matter if it's dead square, because it really is immaterial. So we've done with that. So what you need to do now is get it in the groove of the rim all the way. Now, if you've got a thicker rim, some of the mountain bike rims will be quite thick, and you won't need to touch this tape. You'll just be able to just push it into the rim, and away you go. But we're going to have to, or I'm going to have to, get this here, and if you can see this bit here where it overlaps into the wall of the rim, and that's going to be no good, because the tyre will come up against that. It will fit unevenly, but it also means that it might not seal properly. So we're going to start with the valve hole, which is here, and just run this along to the edge as best we can. Now if we start bringing it up like that, and then we can, as I say, just run it along. It just needs that bed to be clear, that's all. So we're going around there, and we probably have to do it the other side. It depends how accurate you are at taping, really. Some of this has come off. This is just the paint on the wheel, because it's a black rim, and that's because I had to use thinners to get the old stick off the Gorilla Tape. Shit, this is harder to talk and do this at the same time. That's it. If I use that there as a guide, that should keep me more level. All you're aiming to do is to cover up the spoke holes, basically, because obviously that will be a point where the air will escape. So you can't expect the fluid to fill up all the holes, and if it does, then you will have trouble being able to tighten the spokes or loosen the spokes if you need to true the wheel. Of course, if you break a spoke, then you need to do all this again. So that is painful. But if the wheel's been built quite well, you shouldn't really need that. So this bit's a bit tougher because it's double tape, because we're back to the valve hole. So that's that side done. Let's get rid of that bit. Another overlap bit, isn't it? So we're done there. Turn it round, start the valve just so that we know where we are. Push it in again. Yeah, so we're gonna have to do it this side. So if we run it along there and just give ourselves a cut there. So we've got a following piece. That's it. So we can just follow that around then. Now I'm going to use Stan's no tubes, which is one of the first treatments I think for tyres, but it's all I've ever used. American company as far as I know. Really good product. I've only started using tubeless tyres for about the last year and a bit, year and a half I suppose, because I'd always been skeptical about them, but they are really good. They're just like leave and forget really. And I'm a heavy rider. I'm 18.5 stone, 6.5 foot tall. So there's a lot of pressure on these, especially the rear wheel, but the front one as well. There's loads of pressure on them to, for a lot of weight for them to take, and they just literally set and forget. So I absolutely love them. If you don't do loads of miles, or you're just going out for a leisurely ride, then maybe you won't need them. But certainly if you're using it a lot, they're a godsend. Okay, so I'm reasonably happy that I've got that clear all the way around. There's a straggling end. So now all we do is find the valve hole and just puncture it. Just use a screwdriver, a round Phillips screwdriver like that will be fine. Find where it is, which is about there. Yep. And then just whack it through like that. Put it all the way around. So you just got a nice seal here. So your rubber will compress into there, like so. Now these come with various different things. I put a washer there. That's just a little O-ring. Some of them come with an O-ring. Some of them come with a bigger rubber. Similar thing to the washer on the back, something like this thing here, this is the old valve. There's nothing wrong with the old valve, it's just that if I was going to take the tape off, which I did to show you guys, then I might as well change the valve. So put the valve in like so. Now you need to do this up reasonably tight for it to make as best seal as possible. It's not going to be airtight, but it's not far off airtight. What's that? 10, 11, 12 mil, 12 mil, 13. Probably is 12, isn't it? What's the 12 then? 11, 12. Yeah, it's 12. Yeah, so just do it up as tight as possible, and you'll see here where it starts to pull in, and this washer here, this black washer, starts to spread slightly. And you don't want to go too mad, because if you go too mad, it completely spreads and comes out, and then you need to start again. So you need to just keep an eye on this washer here, this sealing washer, and make sure that you're not overdoing it. So as tight as you can without deforming it completely, really. And don't worry about a complete seal, because as I say, now it's probably about right. If anything, it might be overdone slightly. So let's just back that off a little bit. That's it. Now let's just get something in there to straighten it up. There's no, that's it. So you're just allowing clearance this side and this side for your tyre to sit in. So, is there a valve in there? Yes, there is a valve in there. So let's take that out and we'll obviously pop that back in afterwards, he says. Where's that gone? So, now putting our tyre on. Now, a lot of people, so where are we? That's the way the cogs are on the back. So rotation is that way. So find our rotation mark on the wheel. Tyre rotation that way. So going forward, forward, that's it. So we're okay there. So let's just put one side on. Yeah, now a lot of people say that these tyres are really hard to fit, and it really does depend what rim you've got, because some rims can only, you know, it's when they say it's 26 inch, 28 inch or 29er, which is a 28 inch rim with just a fatter tyre on it, that's all. People say they're really hard to fit, and they can be, and it all depends on the rim. Some of these rims it literally falls on, and some of them are harder, but none of them are that hard. I haven't found them that hard anyway. Now I always start from the area away from the valve, and this is from the old tube days, because normally you would start from the area away from the valve, put the tyre in to the bed, and then bring it up, and then you can pop your valve up, which brings the inner tube away, and just finish off with tyre levers if you need to. Now obviously if you're doing it tubeless, you don't need to worry about tyre levers. Now there's a few ways of doing tubeless tyres. I'm going to put the fluid into here, which means I need to get my fluid rack, don't I? Where's that gone? I'll just keep this for tubeless tyres. It's actually for Shimano brakes. I put it in a plastic bag. You can get dust in here, it just keeps it clean. And that's where we're going to put the fluid into the through the valve hole. But you don't need to do it that way. You can do it where you keep an area like this. So you're putting this in now. So let's get this in as much as we can and up as much as we can by hand. Okay, so we're nearly on. Make sure that that's in the bed. Always make sure that the tyre is in the bed as far in as it will go, because that will give me more room at the top to put your tyre on. And you can see we're going to be able to put this on with our fingers. But what you need to do, if you're not going to put the fluid through the valve, which is by far the easiest way, but if you haven't got anything to put it in there with, then all you need to do is get it to a certain stage like that, pull the side of the tyre away and pour your fluid in there. Now whatever it says on the container of whatever fluid you're using, it will give you a guide. So on this it says recommended quantity per tyre, bicycle tyres 1.0 to 2.4 inches, which will cover this one, 23 to 60 millimetre is the metric width. Used 2 to 3 fluid ounces per tyre, so, which is 60 to 90 millilitres. So I've got a 2.2, I think this is 2.2. What is this? This is a 2.25, yeah, 2.25 inches tyre. So I'm going to go somewhere in the middle, because it's on the bigger side. So I'm going to go somewhere around about 50 millilitres of fluid, which is about 2.5 fluid ounces for those using Imperial. so we'll do that in a second. So that's what you would do. You would put your fluid in the tyre there, roll it around your tyre so the fluid sits here so it doesn't go all over the place, and then just finish off putting your tyre in or on. So we've got that on with our fingers, no problem there. Now you do have to make sure that that fits either side of the valve, which it is doing. Okay, so that's that. Now we'll just get some fluid. Let me get a cup. So any kind of container is fine. So we'll just pour some of this out. Don't need loads. So 5, 10, 15, 20 millilitres, and on here it said 60 to 90 millilitres per tyre. So I'm going to go somewhere around about, that's right, that 60 to 90 millilitres per tyre. Yeah, I'm going to go somewhere around about 80 because I've got right on the border of the wider tyres. So I need basically 4 syringes full. So it's 20 millilitres. So we'll pour that straight in there. This is much less messy than doing it for a hole in the side. I find it anyway. So that's 40. A little bit more. So that's 60. And when you service these, as I say service these, you don't need to put the full amount in every 3 months, because the stuff, it just needs to be replaced. Some if you've had a puncture, and some if it's just gone off. So normally about 20 millilitres or so every 3 months will sort it out. Okay, so that's 20 millilitres. Put a lid on that. Put it in there. Job done. So that's that as far as the fluiding goes. So we take our new valve, pop our new valve in, like so. So then just revolve it round and try and get the fluid around the tyre so that when you put the air in, it's going to have a better chance of sealing quickly. Now I'm going to use a compressor because the only pump I've got is literally one of these like get you home things, and that would work with a tube, because if you do get such a puncture or a rip in the tyre, you're going to need to put a tube in rather than loads of air. But as I say, with tubeless it normally doesn't happen. You might have to put a little top up of air, which this is fine for, but it's not going to have the initial oomph that's going to be needed to seat this tyre. So I'm going to use a compressor, but if you've got a good foot pump, a good hand pump, or one of the reservoir pumps you get, which is like a long tubular reservoir, and you pump the reservoir up so that it puts some pressure in the reservoir, and then you release that pressure into the tyre. So I'm just going to use it, as I say, on a compressor. And you'll find that if you try and pump these up without any sealant in there, they do pump up to a certain degree. Obviously they leak quicker, but they do actually pump up. Right. See? There we go. I'm just waiting for the compressor to go down. So we're gonna, when the compressor goes off now, we're gonna fly this up, he says. I just put a new valve on this because it kept doing that, it kept flying off. Made in China. Right, so there we go, shall we? So you start turning it round and you'll see that the sidewalls start coming out. Now that's sealed a little bit, but this thing still keeps coming off, so we'll put it back on again. You start to see the sidewalls where the fluid starts to just come out and seal start slightly. So, oh, this thing's a pain in the backside. Should have left the old one on there, that was more reliable. Right, so start putting your pressure. You see it's starting to hold pressure now, and keep turning your wheel. And this is why you need a reasonable amount of air going in there, because a lot of it initially does escape, as you can see, through the sidewalls here. But that's fine, because it takes a little while for it to build up. Take that. That's it, and as the pressure builds up, you can see it starts to come out on the sidewall. Now these are really notorious for not sitting all the way around evenly, and the bigger the tyre gets, the worse they get. By bigger I mean the thicker the tyre gets. But you don't notice it in riding, and you can see that's basically fine now. So we bring it up to what I normally have at about 60 psi, and then what you'll find is that after a day or a day and a half, when you first built it up, you'll find that the pressure would have gone down. It might be, you know, if you pumped up to 60, it might be down to 20, 10 psi, something like that. But that's fine. Just put some more air in it, and it will self-seal, and after a period of about 3 days it'll be absolutely fine. If you're going out for a ride straight away after you've done it, normally that will be fine as well, because you'll pump it up. You might need to add a little air with a small pump, but where you're cycling, it's continually revolving the wheel, which is what you need to do, because that gets the fluid covering the whole inside of the wheel, and any small leaks that are around the side will be filled by the sealant. So to actually ride it after you've done it is quite a good idea, really. But it's peeing down with rain today, so I'm not going to. So I'm just going to bring it up to about 60 psi, which it might not do, because it depends. This is one of my filter setups. Yeah, it should do. It's not coming straight through the compressor, it's going through a series of filters first, and they're regulated down. And I'm not sure, I can't remember what they're regulated down to, but it's about 80 psi I think. So that's 60 psi. So I'll leave that where it is now. Take that off, and then just spin the wheel by hand and put it each side like that. So what you're doing is you're coating the other side of the tyre along this rim here. This is the rim you're after. You're just coating that with the fluid so that any small leaks, and just do the same that side, any small leaks are being plugged. Like so. Now you're getting some come out of here, that's fine, and that always happens, but most of them you don't, as you can see, most of them you don't. And a set period of a couple of days just to allow the liquid sealant. You can see there's obviously a lot escaping out the side there, but that's exactly what it's designed to do. Once it escapes, it creates a seal, and you're good to go. So I hope that was okay, but you can see that actually even fitting the Marathon Plus tyres it is not that difficult, as long as you get this side bed in to allow you room opposite where you're bringing the tyre up. I mean, we fitted this completely by hand. We didn't need any levers whatsoever. Sometimes you do, as I say, it depends on the rim. Sometimes it just literally falls on the rim. But yeah, okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed it, and happy and safe riding. Cheers.